Back in 2010, a friend of mine came to visit me whilst I was living in Cyprus. Everything went well, we enjoyed our time together, we went visiting places from north to south of the island, we swam, we enjoyed time outside with my friends, the friends that I met there, and then on the day of departure, there you are, the volcano in Iceland erupts, and you know the gist, right? You remember the story that this ash cloud basically was like pushed towards like Europe, and the majority of airports had to shut down. The ash cloud didn't reach Cyprus at the time, but it reached Italy, specifically Milan, and my friend couldn't fly back to Milan to continue like her life there, and so. Although like we both enjoyed our time together and she was very thankful she made her way there, she started getting anxious and I was getting anxious. She started thinking about like all the commitments that she had in place and she had to cancel because she had to stay in Cyprus. And I started thinking about like, I love you here, but I have my life here and I don't know how to mix you with my life. And yeah, and I'm saying this because, the message is like, it's not that I don't like my friend, but it's like, you are a visitor to a life that I've built here without you. And it's difficult for me right now to actually include you into that. Like, it's almost like you do not make sense here. And so the episode today, as you may have guessed, not only from the introduction, but also from the title, is about like visitors. So when visitors spend their holidays in your host country. So welcome to We Are Here Too, a podcast about mental health and life abroad. My name is Francesca. I'm an Italian counsellor living in Scotland, and I'm your host. Well, that was a long introduction. I don't know if you guys know this. Maybe there are, among you some people who are actually audio editors or love editing audios. Who knows, right? But I can have in front of me the program that I'm using, which is Audacity, to record this podcast, and I can actually see like second by second what I'm recording. And usually my introductions are like 30 seconds long, but this one went for like almost 2.5 minutes. So I will try to keep the rest very, very brief, but full of content. Okay, so for this episode, I try to think about like all the experiences that I had of people visiting, and I don't necessarily have an order in which I want to tell you about the things that I've noticed, but for sure it's going to come from my own experience. And I just hope that some of you can relate or can find words to explain what's going on for you by listening to this. And if you want to just like connect with me and tell me your stories, just feel free to actually connect through social media, my Instagram handle, or via email. I think my email is somewhere in the description of this episode. So first things first, let's talk about something that is connected to my introduction, which is basically about like when we move abroad, we recreate a life without the people who used to be in our life back in our home country. And if you're someone who moved countries repeatedly, then I'm talking about like all the people that you've met up to this point who belong to other stories in other countries. Okay, so this happens as well when we move within our home country to a city and another. It's just like it's so interesting as a concept for me. Like it's almost like I'm recreating new routines and new habits, and I'm meeting new people and I'm getting close to new people. I'm becoming intimate with those new people, and at a certain point there is a switch, something happens, and these new people are actually the ones who know more about us maybe because they've met us in that moment, and maybe, I don't know, we feel like particularly open to share our experiences. Maybe it's a different stage of our life where we are very outward, very connecting and verbally connecting to others, and we share more. Like whatever that is, the new people, or what I would consider like new people, okay, the people of the host country are actually they actually hold an image of you that is the most accurate in the present time. Think about it. Those people, they were there when something major happened to you. And although you've described, your experiences to your friends and family back home, the people who live in the country with you, in the same town as you, are the people who are actually getting everything out of you. They see you and they experience you. They experience how you move. They experience how you interact. They experience the exact consequences of whatever events you had to go through. And I'm talking about everything. I'm talking about like getting a promotion or attending university course if you've always wanted to attend, or not being able to actually go home during the pandemic and being stuck in the host country and being stuck with them, most likely, and going through the pandemic together. They were there when big life events have happened to you and you couldn't go back home. And there are so many words we can actually share with people, but while we are abroad, living a life that it's not the same one of our home country, we're actually growing. We are continuously growing in a direction. And the people who used to be with us when we were much younger are not the same people who are with us now physically, and although are there for us emotionally, and I'm eternally grateful for my friends and family back home, because they're the one continuously reminding me where I came from and continuously reminding me that no matter what, they're there for me to support me, and that I'm always going to have a place back if everything else fails. And of course, like there is an episode about failure in season 1, and it's not they think, or I think, that my life abroad is going to fail, because I don't think that my life abroad, that when I was in Italy, my life in Italy would fail. You know what I mean? Like, there is a different type of way of understanding this. I suppose what I'm trying to say is, like, they're there for me no matter what. And it's so incredibly, touching for me. It's almost like they're very solid. But it's also like, although, they're solid there, and I feel lucky because I know not everyone has that solidity in their life. But for sure, like, the new people, those that you're meeting, are a new type of solidity. They are the one who understands you now. They are the one who understands how your past impacted you now, because they're seeing you now. And for some reasons, the image of you back then is what people back in the home country remember. And when people come and visit you, because that's what the episode is about, is people visiting, it's almost like when we visit them there, but back in their home country, there is like this dissonance for them. They're just like, it's very difficult for them to grasp who you are now in the new country. It's almost like seeing you on holidays. And this brings us to point 2, which is actually, I suppose, because we are away and maybe we've just started our experience abroad. In my experience, that's when I am most likely to be visited by friends and family. They just want to know where you've settled. They want to know everything about your life. They're really excited for you, but they're also excited about their trip. And, everything is a novelty. But from experience, eventually that sense of novelty fades away for them too. When they realize, well, Francesca's not coming back, for example, that's in my case. And, and then, Francesca is visiting because Francesca always visits. And sometimes it's incredibly frustrating. Like when, it's very difficult and quite upsetting to realize that the people that you love are not prioritizing visiting you. But I understand, because there are so many different scenarios that I can share from my own personal experience of people maybe not having the finances and resources to come and visit, not having time, struggling with things that it's happening in their life and not being able to budget in a visit in your host country. And then at the same time, I understand that there is an expectation that because we left, we are the ones who need to go and visit. And I cannot even start telling you the many times my parents that actually, not even quite covertly mentioned the fact that, well, Francesca, you're the one who left. So, you are expected to come and visit. And I was like, yeah, sure, pal. But, that's what was happening. I was like going on holiday somewhere in Europe. And then I would always make sure that the last at least 2 days of my holidays were back in my home country, so I could meet my parents and my sisters. And although a part of me was very grateful that I could make time for it, another part of me was like, but come on guys, come and visit me, I want to show you around. And it really took a long time for both my parents to come and visit me in Scotland. I spent the first 3 years, 2.5 years in Scotland before they could actually fly over, and they travel. It's not like they struggle with traveling. They do it. So, but this podcast is not to trash my parents in any way, but it's just to say now after that time they visited frequently. I suppose it was the first time, and it was also again Francesca's leaving again. Scotland was not my first my first country where I lived in. So, but there is this thing, right? There are different expectations. You are novelty, and things fades away. But also, and this is my experience, I have friends who moved away from the host country and they're having their life elsewhere, and we try to find time to meet. We try to find time to actually visit one another in the foreign country. And to be fair, I have a very close friend who moved to the Middle East, and I know you are listening, so you know who you are. And there was a time where I was just of course, I'm coming to visit you. You are my first person that I'm visiting this year, and it still hasn't happened. And for me, there is a lot that I need to organize for that specific trip. And there is also a sense of oof, we haven't seen each other in such a long time. Me and this friend of mine, we've met last back in, I think it was 2012, when I moved to Scotland. She and another friend of ours came for a visit a few months after I moved to Edinburgh, because at the time I was living there. And so can you hear what I'm saying? It's it's not that I don't love this friend of mine. It's just in this moment, it almost feels like the priorities shifted, and the time that I actually wanted to visit and we agreed we were going to see each other was actually winter 2019, that I said, I'm coming to visit you in the new year. And then the new year arrived, I got a new job, and I was I'm not sure I can manage right now, in the beginning of 2020, but I'm gonna make the time. And then pandemic, and then lockdown, and I'm not gonna add anything else. But that's the thing. It may not happen, and when they come for a visit, it's exciting, and sometimes it feels like time hasn't passed, and sometimes that's a problem, and sometimes that's a blessing. And this is just to mention to mention something, like I have a friend and she moved consistently, and I managed to visit her twice. And you know who you are again. She lived in Eastern Europe, and it was so exciting to visit her. She's a very close friend of mine as well. And we every now and again we manage to speak over Zoom, very rarely, but when we decide to speak, we spend hours over the phone. And that's in a way like visiting each other in our own place, because we spend the entire day and it's usually like, well, oh yeah, I'm gonna make my meals, or I'm gonna, clean the flat while I'm talking to you. And since she moved away from Eastern Europe and she moved central and then another part of the world, it's so complicated. And we managed to see each other in Italy, in a neutral land, in a neutral city, let's say. But still, like, it's so complicated to visit one another. And I'm sure she would love to come and visit me. And this is an invitation, if you're listening to this specific episode, to come and visit me, okay? But, and I would love to visit her. So maybe I should connect my trip to visit a friend in the Middle East with my friend, like, in, I don't know which church. She's living in Turkey. So, yes, I'm coming to visit you both. But that's the thing, right? Like, visiting is extremely complicated. And when the novelty passes, or, your life as, let's say citizen of the world, right? Like, it means that you're meeting people who are part of their life as well. And yeah, and then they come to visit you and you're just like, okay, and you kind of understand each other in that moment, but it's complicated. Another point, which I think this is point 3, is about people are coming to visit you. So eventually that happens, whether it's the beginning of your stay in your country, whether it's like after 10 or 11 years, as it happened to me. You're there, someone is coming for a visit, and you're spending 24/7 together. And maybe you've never spent so much time with them before. You know what I mean? Like, yes, maybe you spent holidays together, and maybe like spending 24/7 together at the time was fun, or maybe it wasn't. And maybe dynamics change because you both have evolved from then. And how do you actually bargain space, when someone is visiting, right? Especially if you're hosting them and they're coming into your house, which is really an expectation. And sometimes there is absolutely no space for guests. It's true that when I visited people, we shared like one room, and we were many of us just because there was no more space. But, having space is a luxury, and not always we have that luxury when we move to a new country. And yes, it's about like, how do we bargain that space? How do we bargain the time in a way that at the end of the time together, we still love one another, and I'm saying this like in a way like with a bit of a giggle, but actually, it's I'm quite serious in terms of, you still want to remain close. And there was a time where I wasn't, spending so much time together didn't do me any justice, nor our friendship, and I'm sure not the other person, because we lost contact. So and if you too, you're listening to this episode for some reason, like, I know we both felt the same, right? Like, but and also, to conclude this episode, I just want to put it out there, and, I think it needs to be there because it's important. And I'm just going to say, right, like, there are countries and there are cities that are more attractive than others. So when I was living in Edinburgh, plenty of people coming and visiting me. But when I moved to Glasgow, no one. Just putting it out there. I have a friend living in Tenerife, and to be fair, okay, she's really my close friend, right? Okay, guys. So she's not someone random, and there was the bridesmaids of honor. So at her wedding, we have a very, very strong bond. But it's true that because she lives in Tenerife, it's very good incentive for me to spend my summer holidays there with her. And I would say out of the 11 years that I've lived in Scotland, if we exclude 2020, for obvious reasons, I think I visited her like 9 times out of 11. And this meant that I neglected other people living in other countries. And with this, we are at the end of episode 8. But before leaving, a reminder that there is another episode that I've published together with this one, and that concludes season 2. And I would really, really recommend to listen to that episode because they're going to have a sneak peek of season 3. Thank you for listening. Bye.